faster than a speeding bullet,
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
more powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
All right, Zach, welcome to the show, man. I'm super pumped to have you here, man.
Cool. I'm excited.
And we're going to start a little bit differently than we normally do, because we're kind of just going to go. You're going to be the co-host for a minute, because all the listeners know that we do a fitness challenge, a mental toughness challenge, and a book recommendation at the start of every podcast. But me knowing who you are, I thought that you'd have some pretty killer stuff for us. So you think you could provide some recommendations for us?
Yeah, easy.
All right, man. Let's go with a fitness challenge first. What do you got for us?
So this has been a favorite of mine, and man, I've been doing it since I started training at playgrounds. So I'm going to give two options. If you're intermediate, you're going to do 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 of this variation. If you're advanced and you want to do a gut check, you could do the same reps but wear like a 20 or 40 pound vest. Or do it body weight and just go 10, 9, 8 all the way down to 1. So you're going to go squat jump, lunge jump, clapping push-up, and then pull-up. And pull-up could be any grip. It could be underhand, overhand. So if you're intermediate, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and you just blast through them. And sometimes the intermediates, I don't have them do a clapping push-up till it's like the 4 and the 2. If you're advanced, put on a 20 or 40 pound vest. That's gonna turn it up. Or if you're advanced, go down by 1 rep, 10, 9, 8, all the way down to 1. So it's basically all jump training except for the pull-ups. You know, those are going to be over under. And then I'm sure there's some freaks out there that'll do like, you know, grabbing in the middle. So like you can take this thing any way you want. Sometimes I do it after a little bit of a warm-up. Other times I do it as a finisher. Other times I do it in the beginning of a workout and then again at the end. So there's a lot of ways they could tweak it.
Okay, and that one sounds. Anytime there's jumping involved, and especially a weighted vest, it's going to get good. It's going to get nasty at some point. All right, man.
Yep.
That's awesome, dude. So how about mental toughness? You got a mental toughness challenge that we could try out this week?
Yeah, I think this one's going to throw everybody for a loop. And I was thinking about this morning, and Jocko Willink I think I either heard it on his podcast or read it in his book, but he said, losing your temper or getting angry is weak. He said It's weak. So here would be a mental toughness challenge for a week, and I'm going to do this myself. It's like, don't get angry. Don't lose your temper. Like, find a way to stay cool, calm, whether you got to internalize it and then utilize that energy some other way. But if there's a lot of coaches or people that are, hard charging into fitness, you get fired up because you have a higher standard of excellence. So when people don't do what you expect or what you think people should do, you get mad, you get fired up. So the challenge is, do not lose your cool for a week. And I actually saw somebody do this, called it like the no anger. He did 30 days. Former gold medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling, Steve Frazier. And for a whole month, he didn't allow anything to anger him. What traffic, this, that, he just kept it cool. I could only imagine how the 30 days would go. I'm going to go for the 1 week.
Yeah, dude, I'll try that on too. I know not long ago I did a no complaining challenge.
Yes.
Couldn't complain about the smallest thing, and that literally changed my life. It was amazing.
I need to do that too.
So I want to try this one on for size. It sounds like a really good one.
Yeah.
All right, man. Book recommendation. I know you're a huge reader. I've seen you, do some videos of your bookshelves. I mean, there's an ample amount of books on there. Could you pick one for us that you'd want to recommend us read?
Yes. Yeah, my bookshelves are breaking, so I'm going to have my son fortify them and make them stronger. And this has been a thing actually since I was a kid. Was in my teenage years, my bookshelf was bending because of all the bodybuilding books and magazines I had. And I remember my parents saying, Zach, you have to figure out what to do with these books. So the top shelf was bending. So then the next shelf had books vertical and then horizontal to support the shelf above it. So book recommendation for everybody, regardless of, what you do, what you want to do is going to be Steven Pressfield's Turning Pro. I think like you could just read a page every day, and that book could change your life if you take heed to it. It makes you want to be better at whatever you do, your career, your entrepreneurial ventures, your family life, your relationships. So I love that book. I've gifted it so many times that like I always go back to, I got to buy like a box from his website because I gift it all the time. I love that book.
Yeah, man, I actually haven't read that one. I'm a big fan of Steven Pressfield. The War of Art is a great book.
Yes.
I love that one. So I'll definitely check out
great.
Turning Pro, man. That's fantastic.
Turning Pro is just so cool. War of Art, I've read it, but also I don't know if you've listened to the War of Art on audio. Whoever he has reading it sounds like I don't know who it is, but it's like the perfect tone to his voice.
That's how I feel about Joe
amazing.
DeSena's book, Spartan Up. Whoever he picked to read that audiobook is just like the perfect person to hammer that book
Yeah,
out.
I never so funny. Joe's a great friend of mine. I know Joe did the audio for his second book. I don't know, maybe that was him and I spoke, maybe that was his first book, but he said if it wasn't Joe, then whatever one Joe did, he said it took him 4 days. They had to like okay, repeat that sentence, but give a little louder on this.
Yeah,
and
you
Joe
can't mess up or anything. That's got to.
Joe's book, I'm going to tell you, like I have extra copies of his book there. I read his book, Spartan Up, and I actually helped him come up with a little bit of the marketing plan behind it. I organized the Barbell Shrug guys to come out there, and we've done some work together. And Joe, he's so inspiring to be around. Last time I was in Vermont was when we did the first ever Spartan wrestling camp together. And he's like, man, I'm so tired of sitting on the plane, sitting behind his computer. So everything he did was by foot with one of those, they called it pancake. It was a 60-pound like sand bell on his back.
Yeah.
He was like taking business meetings with the sandbag on his back. He would eat lunch and it was sitting on the table. He was walking up and down the hill as the kids were wrestling. Like he did not stop. And he's, man, if I've ever met somebody who completely represents what their company is about, their business is about, holy crap, like that guy epitomizes what Spartan's about. It's amazing.
Yeah, man, I love everything he puts out. Super inspirational, motivational, the take no prisoners approach. I'm all about it, man. I really love all his stuff. All right, dude. So just in case, I thank you so much for those recommendations. Those are awesome. And I'll make sure that we have links to all of that and the workout written out in the show notes. But just in case anyone doesn't know who you are, could you give a quick intro to who you are and maybe a little bit of your background?
Yes. So Zach Even-Esh, I own a couple of gyms. They're called the Underground Strength Gym. And how all of this started was essentially, becoming a strength coach and doing stuff online was kind of like it was almost like a mistake. It wasn't this plan that I was going to kind of take this route. So I went to college, got my undergrad in health and phys ed. I was a teacher, and I taught for 11 years. But during my 5th year teaching, I had torn my ACL during jiu-jitsu practice. And the summer before that, so I was a 4th year teacher, I was kind of training a couple kids in the neighborhood in my garage. I lived with my parents. I was like my 4th year teaching, so I was like 25 at the time. And just some real basic stuff. And I was training them because as a teacher, you have the summers off. And I wanted to I was so into hard, intense atmospheres in the gyms. And in the mid-90s, late 90s, early 2000s, that stuff started getting away from the gyms. Excuse me. So I was like, man, I can't take driving all over New Jersey, going to this gym, that gym, trying to find a place where the music's loud, the atmosphere's intense. So I started setting stuff up in my garage. And these were the early days of eBay. I was buying stuff off of newspaper classified ads. I often tell the story of I went into Newark, which is one of the most dangerous cities in America. And I saw a classified ad and it said, gym went out of business. So they were selling some benches, some dumbbells. So I put some money like in one pocket, put money in a sock, money in my underwear. And I was like, man, if I get jumped, they're not going to take all my money. I didn't have a whole lot of money. So I started acquiring equipment from, garage sales and people going out of business. And I set up this little thing in my parents' garage. I had heavy dumbbells. I bought a 300-pound weight set. We had a bench, a dip bar. And then in the backyard, we had all these stones in the backyard. So I was training the kids kind of like bodybuilders in the garage, then doing strongman stuff in the backyard with some body weight training I learned through watching and learning wrestlers. So after I tore my ACL, it was like a year after I started training the athletes, just as a side gig. I only would train them in the summer. I started kind of feeling this calling that I'm so tired of getting hurt. Before that, I had broken my nose. Sometimes when I see my videos, I see my nose is a little crooked. I broke my nose. I had torn my rotator cuff in my shoulder. I had injured my back several times. I already had one knee surgery. This was going to be the second. And I felt like I was doing all this hard work, but not performing the way I should. So I was kind of like, man, what the hell's going on? So I said, I'm going to figure out the best way to train wrestlers because I was a wrestler, and I'm going to make sure no kids go through the hell I went through. Train your ass off, but then you're always hurt. You're always hitting a setback. And then that just snowballed into I started buying books. I started researching what the best coaches in America were doing. I started trying to find what the Russian wrestlers were doing. And that led me to coming across Louis Simmons and Elite FTS. They had a couple of writers that were writing a lot about the Soviets and the Eastern Bloc countries and that stuff. And I guess the way I'm wired is I don't do anything. Oh, I'm just going to dabble in it. So I went nuts with it. And from being a teacher, I started training athletes after school, all the local kids I knew, because I was a wrestling coach. So I would tell them, they would tell a couple friends. I was training the local athletes in the neighborhood, the high school kids. They were basketball players, wrestlers, all these multi-sport athletes. And then before you knew it, it was oh shit, I'm like a coach now. I'm training these kids, and I had no plans originally to do that. My plan was to teach in a college or to be a supervisor of health and phys ed. So from that fifth year, I went on and taught a total of 11 years. But I think it was I opened up my first gym, I think in about to say 2007. It's the year 2016 now. Yes, opened 9.5 years ago. I opened the first location. So the way it all kind of progressed was spent 2 summers out of my parents' house. Then my fiance and I, at the time we bought a house, first thing we revamped was the 2-car garage. So there's some super old videos of me training kids in my garage, training them in the backyard with tree logs, climbing ropes that are hanging from the trees. I always remember my neighbor saw us, and it looked like kids were going off to a military. There were kids swinging sledgehammers. We had tree logs from an old tree that we cut down. Kids walking on their hands. We were training with kettlebells. People really weren't doing these things back then. And I remember my neighbor's aren't you going to hurt their heart? She's thought I was killing these kids. So I was kind of taking this primitive knowledge of bodybuilding, a little bit of body weight work that I had learned from my gymnastics instructor in college. Then the internet was kind of in its infancy. So I was learning bits and pieces from the right people, from Louis Simmons and Elite FTS. And I spent a couple years training athletes out of the house, the garage, until I never forget this one day. We were finishing one group, the 4 o'clock training group, and there was cars out front, and then the 5 o'clock group was coming, and there was 15, 20 kids out front of my house, shirts off, kids were just jacked and ripped. And I remember seeing my wife in the bay window, looking what the hell? And I was man, I think this is a sign, this is too much going on here. I need to get out of my garage. So Alan Cosgrove had kind of said to me maybe a year or two before that, him and I would talk all the time. He was a big mentor to me. He goes, really, how big time could you be if you're just going to train people in your garage, you know? And I was like, man, he's right. I got to push this. I got to make it happen. So I opened up a gym next in the town I worked in. So I would teach during the day, drive to the gym, eat quickly, train, and then I would train athletes at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. Then I'd train them I think at 9 a.m. on Saturday. But when I was training kids out of the house, people were finding out about me because I was writing about it on the internet. I would take photos, and I felt good writing because I was so passionate. I was always very passionate that writing was kind of my way to share with people, because everybody told me, you're crazy. You can't train wrestlers. You can't train athletes. You cannot do these things. People were like, you don't even know what a PDF is. What are you talking about selling workouts on a computer? I'm talking the days of floppy disks.
Right.
So whoever's my age, I'm almost 41. They're like, that makes sense. So, it's crazy, this evolution that it's gone through. So now I've got a couple locations. Coaches tend to travel here from all around the world. That started happening after the first year I opened the gym. People were just calling the gym. What's weird is more coaches were calling the gym than the athletes. Coaches were aspiring coaches. They were people that had, they were accountants, they were lawyers, and they saw me teaching and doing something I was passionate about, and it hit me that, man, people walk this earth doing shit they're not even passionate about, because I still get those kind of emails all the time. So, my main thing now is, and it always has been, is I just love training the athletes. That's, to me, my favorite thing. I know what they need. I know what it takes from a physical and mental standpoint to build them up. But I always tell people, I go, man, it's hard, because I'm selling hard work, dedication, work ethic, I'm selling everything that a lot of stuff on the internet has turned away from, or even since the beginning. Everything was the secret to this, the 6-week to that, the 12-week to that. And I'm like, man, it's not a 6-week, 12-week. It's a years and years. And even yesterday, I interviewed a couple kids at my gym, and it's each kid is yep, I started here 4 years ago. I started here 7 years ago. And they are best athletes. They train all year round, off season, in season. And I look at, even now, I'm 41, and I never stop training. I work around the injuries. I just find a way to get it done. I always tell the kids, I go, when sports are over, your training is never over. You guys have to always train to be dangerous. You can never lose your edge. You've got to always push. And, the kids I spoke to yesterday get it. But then there's some people in the population or in this world, they're like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
to be, hard workers, and I chase the work. That's what I love to do. So, I have a hard time also answering questions quickly, Jared. So
no problem. I love that.
I'm not good. I'm not good at answering questions quickly. So, what I have now is I've spent time working, at Lehigh University, which is in Pennsylvania. That's a top 10 wrestling team in the country, very historical program. And when I was coaching there, see, I love coaching so much that it's almost bad in a way, because I lost money, I lost time, I lost a lot just traveling there. It was 105 miles each way. I would go there twice a week, 105 miles each way. That's just shy of a 2-hour drive. And, that took away time I could spend on growing the gym business, running the internet, or the one important thing that got me to really quit my teaching job was I just wanted to have breakfast with my kids.
Yeah.
And that anytime something interrupts my morning time with the kids, man, it has to be super, it has to have some sort of a magical pull on me. So training wrestlers, man, I love training wrestlers. My wrestling coach said to the team one day, He goes, you guys are the original gladiators. Was like 1991. He said it. You are the original gladiators. You are going out there to engage in man-to-man, hand-to-hand combat. This was before the UFC was out, back before, they may have had Vale Tudo and all that stuff in Brazil, but man, there was no UFC. I remember when he told us that, and it just, like, something stuck to me, man. Like, I still, like, take the lessons from my coaches and apply them to my life now. The dedication, the work ethic, the toughness. So I want to take that kind of ability of, like, impact of coaching to help people change lives through being strong. Not just strong of, like, how much weight you put on the bar, because there's people out there that could deadlift more than you and I, or squat more and do all this stuff, but outside the gym, their life is a wreck. I want to show people how you take your dedication to the gym or your training, wherever it is you train, and apply it to your life, because it's a big parallel. They're the same.
Yeah, man. And you have an amazing, like, wealth of experience, and you're talking about, kind of living that strong life, that you're always talking about. And it made me want to ask you a very interesting question. So bear with me for 1 second. So you say there's a nationwide curriculum implemented. The United States has to go to this, like, single educational system, and the president calls you up, and there's going to be one book for this education. President's like, hey, Zach, you're going to be responsible for one chapter, man, and every single child in America will have to read this chapter. They got to be tested on it, and they have to pass the test before they can graduate high school. What is Zach Even-Esh's chapter about?
Wow. I would write about doing something every day, something physical every day, something that just doesn't challenge you physically, but that challenges you mentally. And I'm even going to borrow something that one of the kids told me yesterday. He's a senior in high school, or actually, no, one of the younger ones said he's a junior in high school. And he said, I just try to get 1% better every day. I don't try to overwhelm myself. I just try to get that one thing done, because that one thing puts you 100% ahead of everybody. So every day you're going to do one thing. You might do farmer walks. You might sprint. You might do burpees. You might do push-ups. You might do pull-ups. So I'm going to tell them to do one thing that challenges them physically and also mentally, that gets them 1% better. And it's going to be simple stuff. Nothing complicated, nothing crazy, simple, straightforward stuff.
Simple and effective. That's definitely my method to training. So I did want to ask, because I've seen this in your gym. I haven't actually been to your gym, but I've seen some videos of you and stuff, and I really feel like your gym, or maybe just your training methodology in general, you really have that other side you talked about kind of locked in, that the mental side, the discipline, the work ethic, the mental toughness.
Yep.
And I know you have some quotes on your wall. You have no easy day. He is best who is trained in the severest school, and anything worth doing is worth overdoing, and moderation is for cowards.
Yep.
So can you elaborate, or not elaborate? They all kind of make sense, but why do those quotes stick out to you the most? Maybe you can pick one and tell me, why it really resonates with you.
Something about me, there's like a story behind everything. I mean, in my gym, there's a story behind almost every dumbbell. I went to this place to get those dumbbells. I had to do this to get that piece of equipment, or I went to this guy and he built it. So a lot of those quotes are, they have some sort of timeline in my life. So there's a story behind everything. So No Easy Day is a book written by a Navy SEAL, and he has a like a pseudonym, a pen name. They even had him on the Spartan Up podcast, and he got a lot of flack from the Navy SEAL community for writing about things and not getting stuff done. And I understand that he did wrong things, but the whole book, like, I love reading books about military, because it changes your frame of reference. You're like, oh, my life is so hard. And then you hear about, these military people who are like going for days and weeks without showers, without real food. I even had to show this to my daughter, as like she was being stressed out over school. And I said, you can't stress over school. I'm going to show you like what, look at my friends. I show her some of my friends on Instagram, full body burn, legs amputated, but they're laughing, they're dancing, it just changes their frame of reference because they've gone through those tough times. So when No Easy Day, the book came out, I read it super fast and I was like, oh, I love this book. So I don't remember how many books, maybe 16 or 20 books. And I would gift the book to like the hardest worker in the gym. So I give a lot of things for my athletes to do outside of the gym to build them mentally, because the training is just one aspect. It's something they're only doing 2 or 3 days a week with me. So I'm trying to really impact them mentally. So I started posting photos of it on Instagram, and then the guy, his pen name is Mark Owen. He called the gym. I guess his like publishing company saw that we were posting on Instagram. He called the gym, and he said, I'd love to sign the books for each of those kids. And then if you could include, a little something what this kid has to work on, I could personalize it. So I mailed him all the books, and he mailed them back to us, and he signed them. So we put No Easy Day up there. And one of my earliest mentors when I was 18, he went on to become a Navy SEAL, and he really just changed my life with his attitude, his intensity, his work ethic, his relentless nature. And then I've got a couple of friends that are really close to me that are former Navy SEALs. So I felt like I wanted to really honor them and have that on the wall. So that's what No Easy Day is from. And now He Is Best, who's trained in the severe school, was a quote by Thucydides. And I can't remember even how I came across that quote, to be honest with you. I may have seen it. I know where I saw it. Now I remember. My friend Wes Whitlock runs a clothing company called Rogue American Apparel. And Wes is a former Marine. And somehow he posted that. And I was like, oh, man, does that resonate? And I had to get it up there because I want when kids come into the gym and their parents to not have the wrong idea. Like, I want every wall to speak to them. I want every piece of equipment to speak to them and say, like, this is what it's about. It's not going to be easy. There will be severe training days, and I will, break you down and rebuild you into what you need to become, not just to succeed in sports, but in life. Because, man, life is freaking hard. I mean, it is whether you're an entrepreneur or not, bad things can happen to you. And you could let those things just hold you down and beat you up, or you can just be like bring it on. Like, I can handle this shit because I've been broken down before, and I want people to utilize their mind to pull through. So He Is Best, who's trained in the severest school, is a reminder also for me. And then from the movie Lone Survivor, I read the book first, and I remember reading that book, and like Marcus Luttrell and whoever helped him write that book, like, you feel like you're in it with him. And when I read the book, I was like, oh man, like I don't have problems. You read that, you're like, that's a tough day. That's tough right there. So that's one of the speeches that they give. So I tend to run into a lot of parents who are like, man, is it too much to train, in season? I mean, how much can they handle? It's, they're going to get hurt, or like, parents are like, I don't really want my kid lifting weights. Okay, your kid's 11 years old. He's going to farmer walk 18-pound kettlebells. His book bag is probably 10 pounds. When he wrestles and plays football, he's pushing and pulling an 80 or 100-pound kid. So that's more than 18 pounds. And then decades ago, kids worked on farms at age 7 for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there's still kids in Iowa and Minnesota and Montana and Pennsylvania working on the farm, carrying hay and carrying, buckets of food and digging ditches, and nobody's getting hurt or overtraining. So it's kind of my way of just telling people, like, stop being such a you-know-what. Like, I don't even want to hear it anymore. Everybody's so worried about it's too much, it's too hard, it's too this, it's too that. And it's like this acceptance of mediocrity that just, I can't stand it. I really hate it. So it's like my way of, telling people this is it. And the new gym, the quote I put up, I say it all the time, and I didn't see it anywhere. It just came to me, was that good enough is the death of greatness. And sometimes, I'll be training a kid and they'll be like, yeah, I always say, when they're done, some kids leave, but then we also have other athletes that stay after. They do extra, or they'll say, what can I do for extra? But then there's always the kids that like never stay. They're always just do the work. And that's good enough. And good enough is the death of greatness. And that hit me, I think, when we started like losing some athletes to places that were 5 minutes closer to home, $50 cheaper. And, a parent once said to me, man, I just couldn't pass it up. It's $50 cheaper and it's 5 minutes away. And I said, good enough is the death of greatness. I remember saying to him, and I always said to myself, don't ever do that to your own kid. Like, don't ever take, as a parent, I'm never going to take my kid to the place 5 minutes away from home just because it's good enough. Like, I can't stand good enough. I want you, like, I know it sounds crazy, but I want to see like passion and excellence, like bleeding out of your eyeballs. Like, that's what I think people should be doing. And I think if you learn early from a mentor and through experiences, that good enough is the death of greatness, and you learn to live it, that it will carry you with you through the rest of your life. Like, I basically just take lessons I've learned from wrestling and apply it to life. It's like that simple.
I think, yeah, that's a huge. I think there's so much overlap, and being able to push yourself in the gym to being an entrepreneur or just like grinding out through life. And a lot of what you're saying, good enough is the death of greatness, reminds me, I'm reading a book right now, 10X.
By Grant Cardone.
Yeah, and that mentality is very much like kind of in line with what you're saying. It's like everyone has these goals that are just like these average goals, or they're just kind of good enough goals. And
right.
He even says himself, his only real regret in life is like 10, 15 years ago, he wasn't setting these outrageous goals. He was setting like these, they were achievable and he would achieve them, but they weren't like really just like the crazy enough. They weren't there.
It's like sometimes you realize like, okay, people who are doing these like big things, it's not like, there's certainly people that have different levels of intellect. They're smarter than you, or they just think differently than you. It's not like they're way ahead of you. What I've learned is that they got more guts. They're just more gutsy about it. They say F it more often. They just go for it. And here and there, even I have to like remind myself, like, dude, as soon as you get comfortable, that's the problem. So I had two gyms, and a friend of mine that I had trained, he's a wrestling coach. I trained a lot of kids from his team. He's like, dude, there's this guy. We're putting our wrestling club in there. He purchased a building. It's going to be awesome. He's putting jiu-jitsu in there, MMA, boxing. They want to talk to you. They want the underground strength gym in the building. I'm like, no way, dude. I'm good. I got two gyms. Everything's smooth. Everything's going great. Then, we let that conversation slide. Then he reaches out to me again. And probably by like the fourth time, I said, all right, dude, I'll just have a conversation with this guy. He's like, look, they want strength and conditioning in there. They want the best. They don't want anybody else. They need to talk to you. They want to see you. And I'm like, dude, I can't do it. I'm talking myself out of it, creating excuses. So then I finally started saying like 10X rule, or even Joe Polish and Dan Sullivan talk about, like the 10X, how can you multiply things? And I was in strategic coach, and I was also, this conversation is going to come full circle, is when I was listening to people, they have like different levels in strategic coach of like according to your income. Everybody learns the same, but you're just in a different group with people making around the same amount of money as you. One guy missed. He was in the highest level group. He was in the $1 million and up earner. He missed his group, so he came into our group. And he was talking about just how like his business grew. He grew his business actually by removing something from it. But sometimes I'm like, it's not always about removing stuff. So I just started saying, instead of saying no, I'm going to start finding a way. So I just put it out there. I told my coaches, look, new location. I'm going to open a new location. We need a head coach that's going to be awesome, who would want to lead this thing off and, basically, be like a part of like the bigger picture. And then I did that with the fourth location. And I just started being more like, let's just do this. Let's go for it. Like, what I started saying, like, what's the worst that could happen? I can't fail because I won't fail. Like, you have to kill me. You have to kill me for something to not work. I will always make it work. So I said, well, since I can't be killed from it, I'm just going to go for it. And then this month we opened up 2 locations. And, I always tell people, I go, don't worry if you're not doing great in your school or great at what you're doing right now, because I was never voted, most likely to succeed or even most likely to be moderately successful. But now people see me and say, wow, he's doing a lot of good stuff. He's being successful, whatever that means. But really what I'm doing is I'm just going for it. I'm being a little more daring, a little more adventurous, and I'm also very willing to work. This month I'm coaching 7 days a week.
Wow.
A lot of people would say to me, no, don't coach so much. Run the business, manage the business, don't be in the business. And I go, that's easy to say when you don't own the gym. And also, I love the coaching. I don't love the business stuff.
Right.
So I get on the ground floor because that's what I love to do. So I learned, you got to figure stuff out on your own. Hard work, smart work is, an answer to most problems. It certainly is, whether it's like you got to work harder on relationships, you got to work harder in your job, your career, your entrepreneurial ventures, you got to work harder on your fitness, your nutrition, that's it. And then all of a sudden you don't look at it like this is hard. You look at it as a gift. You look at it like, man, I'm friggin' lucky. I have my shoulder has been injured for a while. And I'm like, my one friend called me or texted me and he's like, dude, you should do this, race, this big race with me. I forget what it was. I was like, well, I can't do that race. There's no way I'm even going to be able to do the rope climbing stuff. My shoulder's just too jacked up. He's like, oh man, is everything okay? I said, yeah, dude, everything's great. I go, I don't have a leg amputated. I've got a roof over my head. I got food on the table every day. So there is nothing to complain about. And he was like, yes. He loves hearing that stuff. And what would be the normal thing? Oh, poor me, poor this. Just find a way. I just find a way to do it.
Man, I love your mentality in business and training. So it kind of leads me to another question, maybe about your business. What's the most outrageous thing that you want to achieve in your business, or what's the vision?
I have a vision, but I honestly, I don't think it could happen because my vision is, as a teacher is I'm so hungry to see kids succeed, but realistically, I always say, I even say this to Joe at Spartan. I go, Joe, we want everybody to be fit. We want everybody to be strong. We want everybody running Spartan races, but really that's like everybody gets a gold medal. It's just not realistic. Not everybody could be great. Just like in the NFL, one team wins the Super Bowl. There's, just like in business, walk through any downtown. Some businesses thrive. Some businesses are just surviving. Some businesses go out of business. I would love to see my system of training in the schools from middle school through high school. But what I've learned is, you just can't get into the schools for whatever the strange reason is. And people have said this to me, people that are really smart with business. They're like, look, you're trying to get into an organization that, they don't have money. There's too much yellow and red tape. So, that being said, I'm always like, I don't really want to hear that it can't be done. So, to be honest with you, I don't know what the vision is from there because my passion is really that younger population, the teenagers and, the middle school and high school athlete. Because if you could mold them and shape them through being strong, you could change their life for the future. So somehow, some way, I would like to have like a bigger platform, a bigger voice where this, simple style of training, like they could just have my book or something that's to the effect of like Tony Horton's got all that P90X stuff. I wouldn't do some sort of DVD like that, but I want that kind of like global reach where he reaches a lot of, busy moms who work from home or can't get to the gym, so they train at home or they work, they got so much stuff. I want to find a way to impact tons of those kids, because every time I let's say I'm driving around or walking around, I see kids that are just like fat, out of shape, weak. And I'm like, shit, man, if I could just train that kid a little bit, if I could, look inside his refrigerator and change that food, I want to change those kids because they don't know what they don't know. And their parents don't know. I mean, it's like this big confusing thing, meaning I did a little seminar at my newer location on Sunday for parents, and they're just lost. They're so confused about what to do. When you tell them to eat healthy, they're giving their kids like chicken and broccoli. Like, kids don't even want to eat that shit. They don't realize their kids don't need to eat the same way as a middle-aged or like an adult is eating who's trying to lean out. Like, kids could eat so much differently. But, also my thing is, wrapping into my vision is there's just kids go through so much tough times, and there's not enough of people really giving them the tools themselves to break free and to break through, meaning they have to go see a guidance counselor, or maybe a coach will pull them through, or, they're kind of don't really have it. But if you could build kids to be strong, me and Joe always say, we need to just build a Spartan school. You come to school, before you enter the gates, you do 30 burpees. We do our schoolwork, but we have our phys ed class or our Spartan class every day. That phys ed class would probably look like that. You probably saw the La Sierra High phys ed video?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was during the JFK Presidential Fitness Challenge. I remember coming across a quote, it speaks about the athletic director should be inspiring and motivating and leading, and the phys ed teacher should, be inspiring and teaching kids how to be strong and how to overcome obstacles in fitness and life. But I want to revamp physical education. I see phys ed teachers, kids get to walk. They're not being challenged, or there's 20 kids sitting out because they didn't want to get changed. We got to get this younger generation, teach them how to be stronger. But, the future is really unique with the millennials and all the technology and people changing the way, schools are getting kind of more regimented, and people like myself think more along the lines of hey, homeschooling. If you ever interviewed Ben Greenfield, Mike Bledsoe, some of those guys, they're a bit eccentric. And then you realize, they were homeschooled. So they're more they're very leader type versus follower type. So, my vision is somehow, some way to have a greater and bigger impact on this younger generation. Because right now, man, there's a ton of resistance, and it may not be unfortunately, it may not even be the best vision to have. It's did you ever see Rocky IV? Where Rocky, he's going to go back to Russia, he's going to go to Russia to fight Drago because Apollo gets killed. And his wife's you're going to get, you can't do this. Why can't you just change? Why can't you just, let it go? He's because I can't, I'm a fighter. That's who I am. I can't change. We can't change. She's sure you can. So there's a big part of me that's man, maybe you can't change. There's certain things in us that are innate. You can't change them, meaning I'm about the kids, and maybe I'm too much about the kids, too passionate, too intense. It turns off the people that would allow me to kind of get involved with that stuff, meaning I'm basically unemployable. I would no school would want to have me in there. It's just They don't need a guy like me. I'm not going to stay in the lane. I'm going to be wanting to do more, do better, do this. And dude, hey man, it is what it is. Just chill out. And I remember when I was a teacher, I was like, man, how come the other teachers don't get upset when these kids don't want to work hard? And how come I can't be like that? And I used to say, I wish I was like them, because they could come and go and not be bothered by it. I would always be so upset when a kid didn't want to work hard. And it's hard to try to change when the people that are working with you, they don't really care that much either. So my big thing is, okay, my vision is helping this younger generation. But then if I pay attention, right, from a business standpoint, who is always asking me for help? It's always coaches. Coaches are always emailing me, messaging me. They want my advice. They want business advice. So I'm like, man, maybe the answer is to build an army of coaches to train all these kids. But we're in a strange world where, like, coaches are not being utilized like myself. You know, you could be in a small town and you're trying to help that town, but they still don't want your help. So, you know, what I do is I just stay the path. Like, I'm a coach. That to me is what I'm about. Do I know business? Do I know marketing? Yes. And it's actually, I feel like it's too easy to just teach people how to market. And that's why I don't want to just be that guy. Like, I could sell the gyms and just teach people how to be strength coaches and how to run a warehouse gym and probably make more money, right? Probably could. But I know that's kind of like, it's like, man, I'm not sure what the word, it's like a fraud.
It's like chasing money over your passion. And
that's right. Yeah. And like, I could tell, you know, what works at one gym as far as like business and marketing doesn't work at another gym and doesn't work at the other gym. And there's like all these unique different things that come up. And I don't want to be the guy that's trying to teach people how to do stuff if I'm not doing it myself. So if I ever, something big happens and I do have a big platform to work with this younger generation, I will still be training kids somehow, some way for free, but it would be even more exclusive than it is now, meaning as soon as you half-ass it, you're out. Which means I'd probably have less than 10 kids.
Yeah, you're cutting them left and right. It'd be like Navy SEALs.
Exactly. So it's tough for me. You know, I think a lot about this is what I want to do, but I hate to even use the word realistic. I freaking hate that word. I think it's like such a weak ass word. But my experiences, you know, in over a decade of doing this has shown me, like, man, this may unfortunately not be the path to make that happen. There might have to be some other sort of path. You know, maybe, you know, if Oprah Winfrey's watching,
I'll try and send it her way. Yeah,
exactly. We might need her help on this one.
Awesome, man. Well, a few more questions here.
Yes.
This I really want to ask you, because this podcast is all about, you know, making people better, you know, and you do it really well, inspirational on social media, on everything that you put out, you know, but I think when we do that as content producers and strength coaches, you know, we tend to come off like we're, you know, superhero-ish at times.
Yes.
You know, like we're not in the trenches, or things might be easy for us or something like that. So I wanted to just maybe peel back your armor for 1 second and just ask you, what's one thing that you could be better at right now?
And first of all, I agree with that. And I say that all the time because you have your, people think that what they see is always just the way it is. So I open this up quite a lot through like my newsletter and stuff, is that I'm always trying to be better, trying to be a better parent, try to be a better husband, try to be a better coach. I try to even be a little like less abrasive to people in general because I'm very tough. So, I mean, there's a million things I could be better at. It's this kind of never ending, that's the relentless pursuit of excellence, is that you're never I've arrived.
Right.
So I'm always really, family to me is everything. That's the most important thing to me. So I work super hard at spending a lot of time with the kids, with my wife, and I pass up a lot of opportunities. I say no to a lot of things. I like the fact that I do that. I could probably better at keeping my cool and trying to understand people a little more versus assuming or thinking you should be tougher than that, or you should be able to handle that. So I have a hard time relating to people who are scared to train with us, or have a hard time, dealing with people who, let's say they invest in something. They invest in like a coaching service with me, and then they don't follow through. I should try to like probably dig deeper and figure out why. So I'm human. I'm human, and and that's probably like my biggest bone with all this internet stuff, known as social media, but the internet is social media, is that I don't want people ever to think like I'm perfect, and that's why I don't like Facebook or all this shit. Like and that's probably maybe why I love coaching so much, is because I feel like there's less and less real things because people are so busy on their phones, and I don't like doing all that stuff. Like I miss the days of just you train and you're not even filming your squats, right? You
Right.
can focus. Yeah. And I honestly feel like I wrote a blog about that, like, when will we ever be able to squat in peace again? Meaning, I wonder how many people have like seriously injured themselves because they wanted to film something for their Instagram.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I know they wrote an article about that recently on Strong First. One of the guys was in a sling. He may have had some sort of shoulder or arm surgery, and he was training. And one of the other coaches in his organization was like, hey, man, maybe you really shouldn't post that stuff because you're sending the wrong message. You're showing people that people don't grab the full picture, meaning that guy's an advanced coach. He knows his body. He knows how or when to push or not push himself. Somebody else seeing that might be like, hey, I've got a broken arm and I'm going to go to the gym and do something, because they don't have the knowledge that this coach does. They hurt themselves. So we have to remember as coaches, like, people will see stuff and then they paint your whole picture on that, So it's man, it's so hard for me to answer this question. I need to be better at everything. That's the bottom line. Good enough is the death of greatness.
I think that's the best mentality too. Is I'm trying to get better at everything. I have the same mentality. I have not arrived at any part of my life. Everything is still hacking away at trying to make it better, and just working on everything.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm being hard on myself or you're being hard on yourself, Jared. I think that's just staying humble. And years ago, I was doing a lot of business stuff, a lot of coaching. I was holding my own mastermind, and I stopped doing it because I felt that people were trying to be me, only what they saw on the internet, where they didn't see like all the stuff behind the scenes, because on this internet, we only show what we want them to see. Right. And a lot of people cherish certain things. Some people are going to show all the stuff happening in their house. Like that one guy, gets paid to video blog, like the Shaytards or something.
Yeah.
He just blogs his whole life. Like I want that to be sacred. Like I want to own my own family time. I don't want to feel like there's a camera everywhere. But it's weird. Like that's what pulls people in, is there's like this thing. And my one friend, I interviewed Jim Steele. He was saying, back in the day, in the 80s, you didn't know what people did. So let's say you were a fan of a football player, you would like buy his book and you would try to like figure out what he ate for breakfast and how he trained. And there was something very special about it. Whereas now there's like, I feel like the special is gone because people just share everything. So there's no like mystique to it. There's no special to it. So sometimes I just try to limit my online presence, but then I struggle with but people want to see XYZ. And that's part of running the business, is meeting their needs and giving them what they want. There's a lot of struggle behind being an entrepreneur, and there's certainly something to be said about the more simple life of just, doing a regular 9-to-5 job or whatever those hours would be, and not having to, like, Jared, you and I don't really know what it's like to casually be on the internet and just like look at the news. Like, everything's always somehow related to your work.
Right.
It's like it's always related to the work, So those things are special that people should, like, they shouldn't look at somebody like you and I and be like, whoa, what's that stuff? Like, everybody is exactly where they want to be. Meaning, if you're working that 9-to-5 job and you say, hey, I want to have another thing. Well, if you really want something else, you would be going for it. Until you really want it, you're not going to make it happen. So, I'm working on everything. I'm like, before this, I wake up early, I do some writing, I make breakfast for the kids, take them to school. I trained. And I trained because I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get stronger. I want to be more fit. I want to be tougher. I want to be more disciplined. Took a shower, boom, down here. And then, I try to like do more things with the family. And by setting like that goal of like, you always want to be 1% better. Hey, what's the one good, better thing I could do today for this area? And that's how I try to roll. One thing I've improved upon lately is definitely like I just learned to just chill out more. Being able to, I'm intense in the gym, and then I got to just not bring intensity to the home, not bring intensity to other areas. So I'm trying to like segment, and leave things like that. And it's just every day, just trying to get better. So that also is like, it's inspiring to feel like what you said, you've never arrived. Like, I don't know what it's going to feel like if I ever be like, I made
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, Joe DeSena, we spoke about this in a podcast. We said, what drives us is purpose. It's like, we're always just trying to help people, trying to help that one person, that next person. So, having a purpose is super important.
I agree, man. All right. I want to be mindful of your time. So I'll do the quick fire questions, and then we'll get to the question, and cool. And we'll be good to go, man. So the quick fire questions are quick question, quick answer, and then we'll go to the question of the show. So, hardest workout you've ever done?
Man, there have been many, but I'm going to go back to my bodybuilding days. So I was, I think, like a second or third year teacher, and I injured my lower back, and I took like a month off from training legs. And I remember like near the end of I was training upper body. I don't even know if I was doing like the typical bodybuilding stuff, but one of the strongest guys in the gym, I was just kind of like talking smack to him, messing with him. He's like, all right, man, you show up, we'll train legs together. I was like, sure, dude, we'll do it. So he would always train at 5 a.m. I meet him at 5 a.m. and it was just brutal. So we did, and I'm going to give two. I'm going to give the bodybuilding workout and like maybe like a functional type workout. So we do high rep leg extensions, high rep leg curls. Then we squat, and where everything's like sets of 10. So I remember this is after a month of no training. I squat 405 for 10. I may have done like 425 for 8. Then we go to do leg presses. I may have had like 10, 12 plates per side. We do max reps, take 2 plates off, keep going, nice. Drop. I may have done like 100 reps. This is after a month of no leg work. Then we did walking lunges through the gym, barbell step-ups. And I remember this guy would do 225.
Wow.
So he'd clean and press, put it on his back. He would just do he was a house. His name was Stokely. Did the step-ups. Then I think we went into deadlifts. And I was like, Stokely, I have to go, dude, because I have to go to work. I got to go to work. So my house was like 25 minutes away from the gym. I don't remember how long, trained at 5. Must have left around 7 a.m. And I remember that afternoon, I'm walking to the gym like I was a phys ed teacher. And I'm walking to the gym, and my legs start like just like twitching and like going into spasms. So I just like walked into the nearest classroom, and I just sat down, and I couldn't even get up. And I can't remember how I found my way to get to the classroom. And for like 2 weeks, my legs were sore. I remember just like pulling myself out of my car. Like, everything, like touching my legs, were sore. And my buddy Stokely was so excited that I was just like destroyed for 2 weeks. Was so sore. And then I'm trying to think of like toughest workout. I mean, I've done crazy things. When I was 22, I squatted 315 for 22 reps. I squatted 225 for 50. I think I got to 46 and then had somebody spot me through the next 4. Man, I've done a lot of tough workouts. I think some of the toughest workouts is like when I go up to Vermont and train with Joe. When I went up there with the barbell shrug guys, we did hill sprints. And Joe said, we're going to do 10. And he doesn't even count. I think we did like 14. And then everything is 100 reps. So before we go into the barn, we do 100 jumping jacks. Then we go in and you do 100 burpees, 100 swings, 10 rope climbs, 100 pull-ups. What the heck else did we do? 100 of something else. And I remember I was just like so destroyed. Then afternoon, we take a hike up the mountain, and it's like this like nonstop ever going training. I've gone through so many hard training sessions that it's just the norm for me. But I still remember that leg workout from my bodybuilding days where I like my legs were just every step, like I felt the muscle fibers like moving, and I wasn't sure wherever I'd be if I could like go. And dude, I'll remember this. I'll tell you this. I remember even that weekend, I was going to take a girl out on a date and my legs were so sore. And I try to get out of the car and my legs go into spasms that I like crawl back to my car. And I remember calling her, asking if she could walk down to meet me in the car.
Oh, nice.
Like my legs are so destroyed that I couldn't even like go to meet her at the door. I was like, this is already starting off bad.
That's awesome, man. And that's why I love asking this question, is because anyone who's been training for a long time, we all have that workout. You know, it's going to stick with us for the rest of our lives. I love hearing those stories. All right, man. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Doing anything that you really, that you're like, man, you don't love to do it, but it's great for you. So for some people, that might be doing running. For other people, it might be burpees. For other people, it might be squats. You've got to do something that, is just very tough for you, that you could do it physically, but mentally there's something that's stopping you. So anything that challenges you, for me, it would be hard running. Like I'm definitely not a runner like I used to be when I was lighter. Running is freaking brutal for me. And I go back to that old saying from the first Navy SEAL book I read, The Rogue Warrior, and he goes, like, one of his like quotes was, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. So this morning when I was training, doing the circuits, like I was like, all right, I think I'll do that sled. But the other sled was heavier. And in my brain, I'm like, you don't got to like it, you just got to do it. So like when I train now, I'm always trying to find one thing that's like not my forte, that I'm not good at, and I'm going to do it. And you just don't want to be comfortable. So anything that you're not comfortable doing, do it.
Perfect, man. All right, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Man, I'm so tempted to just say body weight, especially I'm so big on body weight training. Like 6 years ago, I just did, I was feeling really beat up from all the heavy lifting. And I said, I'm just going to take 2 weeks and do body weight training. And then that 2 weeks, I was feeling really good. I said, let me just go for 30 days. Let me see if I could go 30 days without touching a kettlebell, a barbell, a sandbag, nothing. And then I was like, man, I'm starting to feel awesome. And then I went 6 months, no touching a weight. I was like, I'm not going to touch a weight until I just feel the barbell calling me. And now with my shoulder injury, this is what I always tell people. I'm like, I never should have done the bench press again. That's what I say to people. Like, I should have just stuck with the sprinting, the animal walks. I would go to elementary schools and find the parallel bars. So, body weight training to me, I think, is just it is the way. That's not to say I don't think you should be doing other stuff. because I love using all the tools, but I feel like body weight training is, man, it's so powerful that I recommend it for everyone.
That's perfect, man. All right, so the question of the show, what is your best advice you have for becoming a better human? And it's 100% open-ended.
Wow, man, that is a good one. Take the focus off yourself. Like, just help other people. So, and I said this to the wrestlers I worked with on Sunday at the new gym. I said, guys, as this workout went on, I gave them that little finisher we did. All I did with them was actually the squat jumps and the push-ups. No, they did squat jump, lunge jump, push-up, no pull-ups. I said, as it got harder, I noticed you guys were, you started slowing it down. You started feeling bad for yourself. I said, but when things get hard, I'm going to tell you a little trick. I go, you have to almost lie to yourself. So when here and there I have a training partner, and if my training partner's like, Zach, how you feeling today? I told them, I go, I lie. I tell them I feel great. I go, but the truth is a lot of times this hurts, that hurts, I'm tired. I go, but what I do is I just focus on boosting him and firing him up. I go, when you help other people, now you feel like you've got to lead by example, and now you help yourself. So help other people, and then I'm going to add to that without expecting anything in return. And that's like Gary Vaynerchuk speaks about that. He says, just help without expecting anything in return. And I've always been a helper, but I also have high expectations of people, like, hey, pick that up, or hey, work hard, or clean that. But him and I have had a couple conversations, and he always gives me almost like, even though he's my age, he almost like talks to you like a father. And I think that's super important, is that if you're going to help people, no, you don't expect anything back in return. When I was helping Joe with his book, his first book, the way him and I met was his publicist reached out to me for a podcast. And then I interviewed him, and I had known of him, and I was actually in his little town when I was meeting up with Mark Devine from Seal Fit. You know Mark Devine?
Yeah.
So Mark was helping Joe train people to be Spartan coaches, but he was taking them through like a 48-hour nonstop thing. So Joe was training people. I didn't meet Joe, and then I was heard a little bit about Joe. So when Joe and I spoke, and I started organizing stuff and helping him plan everything out, he's like, I got to pay you back. I'll pay you. How do I pay you back? This and that. I go, Joe, did you ever help a friend out just because you're helping a friend? Because that's what friends do. He said, yeah. I go, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm just helping you out. And because I'm helping you out doesn't mean you have to help me out. That's it. So I used to always expect of other people. So help people without having expectation. And I'm going to tell you another one. This is a good one. Gary Vaynerchuk said this to me as well, is sometimes, we hold on to stuff. You hold on to regret. You hold on to maybe somebody who did something to you, or you allowed them to do something to you. He said, you got to get rid of the poison in your body, or you could never move forward. So that's a big thing, is like learning how to let go. And there's that quote that, like, if you're living in the past, you are depressed. If you're living in the future, you're stressed. And if you're living in the present, like you have calmness, something to that effect, or you have peace. So I'm just trying to live more in the now. You asked me the question about what's the vision. Whenever I think about the vision, like, it stresses me out.
Right.
Like, you're like, So I'm just trying to like do the best I can with where I'm at. And I take that approach to, when I'm coaching, we might have 10 athletes. We might have 20 kids. We might sometimes have one kid in a group. That's not even a group, right? It's a one-to-one. And what's interesting is my coaches will say, oh man, like it was real slow today, or there was only one kid, or there's only 4 kids, but then they love it when there's 20 kids. I go, well, when there's one kid, you still got to give them 100%. Like that, like you got to be in the now. You can't be, you can't only turn it on when it's, on, like you can't only like be your best when the situation is the best. So you've always got to give your best, and that's what you could control. So my advice, is give without expecting anything back. Be present. That's something that I'm always working on, and just like hard feelings, bad feelings, like, it's just let it go, man. Let it go.
Perfect, man. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time. But for all the listeners out there who definitely want to hear more from you, what's the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Go undergroundstrength.tv. That's the Zach Even-Esh blog. On Instagram, just hashtag Strong Life. They'll see my Z Even-Esh handle, Zevenesh. And then I think like my blog has everything linked up. It has my book, certification. The newsletter has a lot of like free training courses for them. So, and then if they're coaches on the side, it says athlete strength coach. So I have so much free information out there. They could like type underground strength coach and they'll come across everything.
Perfect, man. And I'll link to as much of it as I can when I publish this. But
No sweat.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you being on the
Cool.
podcast.
Thanks, Jared.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.